Sorry, my computer was freaking out for a second there. Anyways, it's good. Things out west are good. I'm excited to talk about the skill position players at the Combine. Combine is fun. Everyone calls it whatever you want to call it. The Underwear Olympics, doesn't matter. Yeah, there's a lot of really good players. Obviously, I heard that there was more players this year than years past. Is that confirmed? What's the deal on that?
So I did read that it's more players than usual, but I want to say we're at like 330 players at the Combine. It's right around that number, and 260 get drafted. So,
yeah.
Christian, you have anything to add there?
I don't have the exact numbers on that, but I know it's going up. And even this year, it feels like there's 20, 30 players who did not get invites that probably should have.
Yep.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit on last night's podcast. And that's, okay, so the NFL has to pay the travel and the lodging for every single player that's coming to the Combine, right? And the NFL knows probably with a certain amount of statistical certainty who the 150 of the 260 players that are going to get drafted are. I think Daniel Jeremiah typically gets 147 of his top 150 right. Right? It's right in there. He only usually misses about 3. Where 3 guys in his top 150 don't even get drafted. So there's a certain amount of certainty, I think, to know that what is the return on investment if you're adding 20 more players, 50 more players.
Right.
And to me, the most important part of the Combine are the player interviews. That doesn't happen on the TV camera. I think a lot of the Combine is made for TV, but what the NFL teams really get out of it are the interviews, not the 40 times. But Christian, as you look at the skill positions, any thoughts on either some players that you need to see what they do at the Combine to know where you want to place them on your board?
Yeah, there's a couple that jump out to me. Malachi Fields is one. I kind of want to see what his time speed is. Again, I was talking about this on a podcast last night, but time speed and play speed are two different things. But if Malachi goes out there and runs in good 40 time, that's going to move him up immensely on some boards, because we know how good he is in contested catch situations working in traffic. But if he goes out like let's say Matthew Golden last year, where Golden's 4.28 took everybody by storm, and that's arguably what solidified his stats as a first round pick. And I don't know if Fields can get to round 1, but it would probably lock him in top 50 certainly with a good 40 time.
So where is Fields on your board right now?
He's just outside my top 50 right now.
Oh, okay, so you are actually higher on him. You might be the highest I've seen on him within the draft professors. Taylor, where's Malachi Fields for you right now?
Right now he's my wide receiver 5, so pretty high.
This is a pro Malachi Fields podcast.
But I have a couple evaluations that I'm not finished with yet that I think will jump him, which include I did look at Denzel Boston a few games today, but I'm not finished with that evaluation. I think he'll jump him. And Concepcion. I think those two will jump him, but I have him right now slightly above the Indiana duo of Elijah Surratt, and then Omar Cooper Jr. And then right below them, I have Skylar Bell, Ted Hurst, Zachariah Branch in that order. So I think Malachi Fields, to me, you've seen some of the crazy catches he can make, but I think what's interesting about Malachi Fields compared to Denzel Boston for me, and it was just the games that I was watching, is I think they move very differently vertically when they're going stop and start. I think that Malachi Fields actually does stop and start. If it's a double move or whatever it is, if he's going in a straight line, decelerating and then going again, Malachi Fields will blow by defenders. I don't think Denzel Boston has that same level of being able to go by a defender, but he's a little bit better in zone coverage, right? And finding those spots where he sits down. I was watching the game and they love this play where they have him on the outside and they run an in route or a slant with him on the outside into the trips package. So then both of the inside receivers are basically running pick routes on the outside. They ran that play a lot for multiple Denzel Boston touchdowns.
Yes.
Yep, that is their favorite play to run in the red zone. That was one of the things I noticed. But I think from a athleticism standpoint, Malachi Fields, I agree with Christian 100%, needs to test well to get vaulted in the first round. I just think maybe Christian and I are a little bit higher than some people on him and think that he maybe could get into the first round.
You're definitely the highest. And you consider like the number of people I've done like mock drafts with and such. I don't know that I've seen anybody willing to draft Fields in round 2. That's what I mean. Like, so you guys borderline top 50. And then there's people that won't even take him at pick 64. I think there was one. I think it was Randy, who's a Patriots fan, and they need a big X.
Yeah, I just think we see it every year. We see wide receivers get vaulted up the boards, and this draft class is weaker than usual. And the receivers, there are a ton of round or day 2 receivers, in my opinion. Like from that, 35 to 60 to 70 range, there might be 10 receivers in that range. And some of those guys, all it takes is one team to fall in love with them, the Keon Coleman's of the world, right? Then all of a sudden, sorry, Jim, all of a sudden you have a day 2 receiver that everybody had graded day 2, everybody in the universe, and they draft him in the first round because he's either team fit, a scheme fit, they interviewed really well, things behind the scenes that we don't see, they tested really well. Or you just talk yourself into a player like that clip. No offense. Sorry, Jim. Again, Keon Coleman, when the GM and they're in the press box of the combine, like, he only ran this time. It's like, oh, no, he ran that time. That's good. That's what, you know what I mean? Like they're talking themselves into it. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone talks themselves into Malachi Fields. He is awesome.
Well, and yeah, I think there's really good revisionist history on the Keon Coleman draft pick. We're not going to make this a Keon Coleman slander. If you want to hear that, watch the Tuesday night podcast where all the Buffalo Bills draft professors get together. There's more than enough. One of the receivers that I'm curious with is Ted Hurst. And I think, Taylor, you alluded to Matthew Golden last year, where like I was at the combine. I was sitting next to some draft professors. And when he ran the sub 4.3 40, the comment was he just made himself several $1 million. Like literally, nobody was expecting him to run that fast. So running a fast 40 time can move a player up, but a lot of it is, let's say, relative to expected. So I want to talk about Ted Hurst for a minute. Christian, what do you think Ted Hurst runs in the 40?
I think he gets into 4.3s. And that's the kind of speed that shows up on his tape. Long strides, explosive speed, straight line speed, especially working down the field. He can absolutely fly. And when he stacks defenders, he shows that ability to find another gear and separate.
Okay. And then Taylor, what do you think Ted Hurst's 40 time is going to be?
Yeah, I think everyone's expecting him to get in the 4.3s, and I don't see why he wouldn't get there. I mean, that is what it looks like on tape, and it's also what people have seen from. I don't remember if he was he in the Senior Bowl or was he in the?
He was at the Senior Bowl, right? I think he was one of the 5 fastest people on the Next Gen Stats speed tracker at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's one of those things where he's already a day 2 guy, pretty firmly. I think, right? Like in that bucket of 10 receivers that I think will probably be in the 35 to 70 range on my final rankings, right? I don't think it should change. People that have watched him should know that he's going to run a 4.3. It shouldn't change that much. The thing is, I don't know genuinely how many of these NFL scouts, like we've talked about it a lot, Jim, like we're watching 350 players. We're looking at 350 players. They might be looking at 60 or 80. Like they might not know. They might know, oh, there's a kid from Georgia State, but who knows? Then they see him run a 4.31 and they're like, holy crap, we got to go get this guy, right? So like there's that element of it. Whereas Matthew Golden was like, I guess to me, Matthew Golden was already a fringe top 50 player, top 40 player going into the combine. His combine just solidified himself as a first round pick. I don't think Ted Hurst could run anything outside of a breaking the combine record and move up into a round 1 conversation receiver for me.
And this is interesting. You two are the fastest. So I've asked that Ted Hurst question on several podcasts. You guys are a 1/10 of a second faster on Ted Hurst, both of you. And it's coincidence, right? Because you two have never podcasted together before, right? So it's not like there's any like level of collusion backstage, like, right? So this is interesting that you guys already think that Hurst is running a 4-3. So like Randall Slifer, Owen, Sam Teets, 4-4-5, 4-5, mid 4-5s. That's what they think Ted Hurst is going to run.
I just think
if Ted Hurst were to do a Matthew Golden, then they're starting to say that maybe that's a round one wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, the way I have Hurst grade in my assessment is with his athletic profile, I think he's got a lot more to lose than he has to gain. Like if he goes out there and and crushes the position drills, if he goes out there and crush like the gauntlet is one that all the scouts watch. They want to see you just stay right on that white line. He goes out there and makes it look super easy. He goes out there and high points, deep passes down the field. That would it certainly wouldn't hurt. I just don't know how much it would help because that's kind of what we expect from him already. But going back to Golden real quick, and I'm going to bring Keon Coleman to this as well. Golden, when Golden ran his 40 time, it forced every scout to go back and rewatch his tape because nobody saw sub 4.3 speed on his tape. And with and kind of the other way too, with Keon Coleman. Keon ran. I mean, did he even crack 4.6 or was high 4.5s? But it was.
I think it was in the 4.6s.
Yeah. Okay, but it wasn't it wasn't a time that impressed by any means. It was one that maybe dipped his stock, if anything. But then I saw a stat where where your speed running the gauntlet, Keon was the fastest.
He was the fastest. Yep, I remember that exactly. Yep.
And because that's the speed that showed up on tape. You go back and rewatch his tape.
4.61.
So Keon's first 2 or 3 steps are powerful. So if Keon changes direction and takes 2 or 3 steps, you see him create separation, but then he can be caught up to because steps 4, 5, and 6, his speed is leveled out. So any DB that has recovery speed is going to be able to close whatever separation Keon generates. There was a specific pass play where Keon made like 3 different cuts that were each 3 steps and like a red zone play and a scramble drill. And they were saying like he got separation 3 different times and then he still dropped the pass.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, I looked up his 10-yard split, which was a 1.54, which is respectable.
Yep. And actually, so Christian, you brought up another good point about rewatching the tape on Golden. Yeah. EJ talked about this last year too, because there was a safety named Marcus Siegel. And Siegel got drafted. I don't remember where he went, but I've heard it. Is it Denver?
Fifth round to the Niners. He's a K-State guy. He's a K-State guy. I'm a K-State guy.
Got it. So Siegel had some impressive testing numbers. He didn't blow up the combine, but on EJ's grading scale, the athletic ability, he pretty much had dinged Siegel for athletic ability. But the combine tape the combine times and measurements didn't match what EJ graded on tape. So he rewatched Siegel and moved Siegel up his board because he had to rewatch because he didn't see the athletic ability the first time he watched the tape.
Yeah, there's things you missed that first time, and going back a second time, and after getting that data, it can change your outlook on a player.
Right. So if a player is shooting up boards, it's because somebody had to go back and watch the tape, not because it's the 40 time or insert testing metric that moved them up. It's the fact that somebody went back to rewatch the tape to verify that they graded that specific attribute accurately.
I'm looking on my board from last year, and of all the safeties I graded, Siegel was the only one to break 4.4.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was both the K-State guys because I've talked about it on the pod before, Jim, but Jacob Parrish they both ran in the 4.3s with a 37+ inch vertical. So Jacob Parrish got moved up he was a firmly day 3 guy, slot corner. He got bumped up. He got taken in the 3rd round. Siegel was borderline UDFA, that 4.37 with a 38 inch vertical or whatever he ran. that's what put him into the 5th round. He started for the 49ers for most of the year.
Yeah.
Especially early in the season, he was playing really well. And he was the only, I think, Jim, we talked about that, remember that big list that was like, where are these players playing? Like starters, secondary, or they're playing special teams. And like almost everybody on day 3 was or the 5 through 7 rounds were special teams players. Siegel was the only one for a while that was starting in that day 3 bucket. Yep. So, I mean, it was a great pick by the Niners, but yeah, you're right. The combine totally blew him up the board.
So one of the positions, like tight end, there is a clear correlation between the athletic ability that the combine measures and NFL success. So Taylor, which tight ends at the combine are you expecting to have really high testing metrics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I'm going to segue that into my awesome stat that I've been waiting all week on. Are you ready for this? So there are 27 tight ends invited to the combine. Okay. 27 tight ends, 21 running backs. That's it. In 2010 was the last time there were more tight ends drafted than running backs. Running backs have been drafted more often than tight ends every single season since 2010. Here are the 2010 tight ends, and I'll tell you why this is reminding me so much of this class versus the running back group. 2010 tight ends drafted: Jermaine Gresham, Rob Gronkowski, Ed Dixon, Tony Moeaki, Jimmy Graham, Aaron Hernandez, Dennis Pitta. Those are the first 7 off the board. Running backs: CJ Spiller, Ryan Matthews, Javid Best, Dexter McCluster, Toby Gerhart, Montario Hardesty, my personal favorite 6th rounder, Trendon Holiday, who was a kick returner for the Broncos and a wide receiver, not a running back. And that was the lowest that there's been. So that running back class was not good. And I think we might see that this year. We might see more tight ends drafted than running backs for the first time in 15 years. So that's pretty interesting. That's what stood out to me when I was looking at the skill position players in the combine, because across tight end, I think it's fascinating to see what these guys are going to run, because I personally have a ton of guys in the same bucket. I have a ton of guys in the testing numbers, like to your point, they directly impact these, players' skill, like what they do in the NFL. And I'm looking at a guy like Max Clare, to me, who was good after the catch, but I want to see that on display. Again, another guy, Marlon Klein, doesn't get a huge opportunity. I believe Marlon Klein was one of the guys that came over from the NFL Europe program, correct?
Yep.
So this is like another guy that has a huge upside. Another guy I'll throw out there, 2 guys maybe, and they're just bigger, taller tight ends that are more, they just have the body for the NFL, and that's Tanner Koziel and Dallin Bentley. I think those are 2 guys that have a huge opportunity to increase their draft stock based on how, they've run and tested the combine. It's really interesting. There's a couple of smaller, kind of undersized guys as well, like Jaron Kanik and Justin Jolie, I think, that also have an opportunity to either improve or drastically hurt their draft stock based on the combine. So I'm interested to see those middle guys, the guys we don't know, more names, Eli Stowers, like Michael Trigg, guys we don't know what they're going to be in the NFL or where they're going to be. Kind of seeing those guys run. And then I think the rankings from I think I named 10 players. You could throw Oscar Delp, Sam Roush, Joe Ryan, or Joe Royer into those, all of those guys. That is going to shift so much in 2 weeks.
And we need to talk about Jaron Kanik for a minute. This is a fun player, right? So Jaron Kanik, if we were talking about him 12 to 18 months ago, he was a linebacker for Oklahoma. Now, there was always discussion, was he a good linebacker? That's a different discussion for a different day, but he was linebacker in Oklahoma. He shifted to tight end, I think halfway through last year, played this season as tight end. And he doesn't really have the body to be a tight end, right? Because I think he's only 230 pounds, right? Yep. So he's going to be somewhere between a fullback, a big slot, a tight end. But Christian, what do you have on Jaron Kanik from Oklahoma?
Yeah, I've got a late round grade on, probably a fullback transitions. That with his linebacker style, he's got the physicality but he's got to bulk up though. Definitely add some weight to him.
Yeah. I think he needs to add a lot too in his run block. And again, he's new to the position, but he really needs to add a lot into his run blocking technique and his skill, and then put on the mass to then succeed if he's going to make that switch. I almost see him I almost see him more of like and this is why I don't know if there's a role for him in the NFL, because he's almost like a Taysom Hill that can't throw. So I don't really know what to do with that. Like, I want him on my team, right? He's a scrappy guy. He's a linebacker, moved to tight end. He's willing to play wherever, clearly. I just don't know if you can hold. I mean, where do you hold a 53 spot for a guy like that he can't run block. He can't be used out of the slot. I mean, he can be used out of the slot, but he can be used out of the slot in college. Can he be used out of the slot when he's facing Jacob Parrish, a 4.37, lockdown slot corner? Like, I doubt it, right? So there's a lot of uphill battles in Jaren Kanek's game. I think that maybe he's someone that can improve with a crazy time, but I don't have a lot of high hopes. I guess I'll say that.
Yeah, I'll just say if I can add one more thing real quick on Kanak, but name I'm going to throw out here as an Eagles fan, Ben Van Sumeren, Michigan State linebacker. I don't think he got a combine invite, but he lit up his pro day, and he has signed an undrafted free agent contract with the Eagles. And the last couple of years been playing fullback for him. Unfortunately, he's had some injuries, so his snap count's only been limited, but he's shown the raw ability and to stay development over time with his run blocking. So I think there certainly presents the possibility, but it's going to take time. Like, I think out of the gate, probably a practice squad guy, special teamer to start, and maybe you hope over time he develops his run blocking. You can play him a fullback, but out of the gate, I'm just not sure what his role is going to be.
Well, and so I think Kanak is the epitome of a day 3 player. So we're here talking about the combine, but the Kanak has significant athletic ability. So we're not denying that. It's, to Taylor's point, finding a spot for him. As long as he can be a 4-phase special teams player, he'll be able to make a 53. But even if he can't make the 53, he's definitely going to be a plus player for the practice squad. And with any day 3 player that you draft, your hope is a jump between year 1 and year 2.
Yes.
Yep. It doesn't have to be immediate impact. And actually, like, I think this tight end class as a whole, if you're expecting immediate impact from a 2026 tight end that you draft, your expectations might be a little too high. Right? To me, this feels like it's a great draft to get a tight end too.
You shouldn't go into day 3 expecting to draft a Pro Bowler. It's the goal, but it's not the bar. Yeah.
So Christian, any other tight ends that you want to name drop that you're looking at them for what their athletic testing will be?
I've got 5 tight ends in my top 100, and I've got about another 12 that are within striking distance. One, and Taylor mentioned it, but Sam Roush is the one I'm looking for. Got good hands, good hands, but can be inconsistent. Just some drops. Okay, problem with the dropsies. But I think a good inline blocker and could really present two-way value as a run blocker and a pass catcher at the next level.
Who are the other tight ends that could move up, Christian?
So I've got a couple. Eli Raridon out of Notre Dame, Dallin Bentley, Utah, Jack Endries, Texas are a few to name.
Okay. Yeah, I like Jack Endries a lot. He was my tight end 1 coming out of summer scouting. So I think he got way better at the end of the year, along with Arch getting better. Like, I think those two kind of like, that's what took their offense to another level down the stretch and made them actually competitive. And I mean, nearly get in the playoff, right?
Right.
So I think I'm excited for Jack Endries as well. Last guy I'll name is Seydou Traore from Mississippi State. He's an interesting one. Arkansas State transfer to Mississippi State, played there for 2 years, but he's from London. I just think that's cool. Cool story. He looks pretty athletic, so we'll see if he can improve his stock at the combine.
Well, I'm glad we focused on tight ends because you've dropped a couple of names already that haven't been mentioned on podcasts before. So that's really cool. So from a running back standpoint, any athletic testing, Christian, that would affect your running back rankings?
So I'm in the minority here. I've got a top 100 grade on Mike Washington. And I think if he goes out there and runs as fast as he could, I think he could potential. I think he can get into the high 4.3s. If he dips into that and shows the explosiveness in the vertical and the long jump, I see a player explosive who can hit the second level with authority, show some wiggle to get out of tight spaces and find open space. I think Washington could work his way up into the top 100 into late day 2.
And Taylor, where are you on Mike Washington right now?
I mean, he's my RB5. So I'm kind of in line with you right there, Christian. I think there's a couple other flavors that I like more. I like Emmett Johnson and Nick Singleton for pass catching ability a little bit more and explosiveness. Jonah Coleman to me is similar to Mike Washington, more consistent, less explosive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's getting you 4 to 6 yards every time he touches the ball.
Yes.
He's making you miss behind the line of scrimmage to get back to 0. And that's important in the NFL. So I have that grade a little bit higher. But yeah, Mike Washington's RB5 for me. So if he gets in the 4.3s, I mean, yeah, sky's the limit. I don't see that happening. But who knows? It could happen. And if it does, he's a massive, I don't have his size right in front of me, but I mean, he's a large running back. It helped him a lot that he didn't measure in at 6'2", I think, because I think he was 6 foot when he measured at the Senior Bowl, and everyone was like, okay, 6 foot 228 is a lot better than 6'2", 28 or 228, right? So that helped him a lot for me. So I think, yeah, I mean, if he runs that high, I don't see any reason why he'd be outside the top 100. I think the biggest thing that I want to stress to people and listeners, anyone that follows Draft Professor and me specifically about this running back class, the gap between 1 and 2 is not close. This idea that we need to have a solidified RB2, it's the conversation. Who's the RB2? Who's the RB2? Who cares? You're getting drafted in the 3rd round. Like, it does not, who cares? But you know what I mean? Like, the gap between Jeremiah Love and RB2 is probably the biggest I can remember from a running back 1 to a running back 2 in any class that I've looked at. So I don't see, I could see there being 75 picks, legitimately 75 real NFL picks between running back 1 and running back 2. So putting Mike Washington in the top 100, while it doesn't seem like a hot take, he's my RB5, but like that's potentially 90 picks with only one running back going. So if that's the case, which I personally could see happening. I mean, we saw it a little bit last year. Cam Skattebo went 105. We thought he was going to go, in the 3rd round, day 2, and those running backs just fall in this class. To me, Cam Skattebo is better than every other running back in this class not named Jeremiah Love. And he went in the 4th round. Yep. So that's where I'm at with this running back class. You see it, 21 total combine invites for the running backs, 27 for the tight ends. I just mentioned it hasn't been done since 2010. So I think this running back class there's no starter except for Jeremiah Love.
It sounds Go ahead, Taylor.
I would say I have Emmett Johnson as like a fringe. Like I think if he hits and his potential is what I think it is, Emmett Johnson can be that other guy. But yeah, Jeremiah Love and the gap between the rest, it really should be the conversation is how many picks between 1 and 2, not trying to put. I saw Daniel Jeremiah said today he thinks Jadarian Price can get into round 1. No, he cannot. He cannot. I'm sorry, he can't.
It sounds like I'm a little more high on Price than you are. I've got a top 75 on him. I think he could creep into round 2. Round 1, yeah, round 1's definitely rich for me.
I mean, he's my RB9, so I'm a little lower on him. I've been really heavy on he as an NFL kick returner. Like he doesn't, to me, he's not much different. He's more explosive, but he's not much different than guys like Tank Bigsby or Kendre Miller, who were drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round to be a running back, and then they can't even get on the field on offense, and then they become really, really good kick returners, so much so that other teams trade for them. Sure. So, like, that's kind of where I'm at with Jadarian Price, and just the running back class as a whole. I just don't see, I don't see a lot of potential like long-term starters in there. Like, I think you're talking about Mike Washington, and Mike Washington's awesome, but like to me, his best comp and like his best, not even ceiling because it's more of a floor, but like Brian Robinson Jr. is a thing that we get thrown around a lot. And it makes sense. He's very similarly sized, kind of in that same realm. But is that all Mike Washington do? Is he better in the pass game? Maybe we get to see some of that at the combine. That's what I'm excited about with the running backs. I want to see him catch the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure there's anybody outside Jeremiah Love is going to go on to, average 20 touches a game. Maybe get 12 to 15. Some may get 12 to 15, but none outside of Love. No one's going to become that bell cow workhorse.
So, and it was interesting when we did running back scouting reports because a lot of the guys that we podcasted on actually came back undraftable or like UDFA grades from EJ. So I think we looked at 48 running backs, but I think there were only like 21 draftable grades. But even then, a lot of those draftable grades, it's a late round pick. But one of the other things that like EJ and I have talked about specifically with the running backs, there's not many running backs in this class that have dominant traits, meaning that are they going to win with speed, win with power, win with insert trait here? There isn't a lot of running backs that have a dominant trait. So like a great example is Roman Hemby. I think if Roman Hemby gets on the field for an NFL team, he will be a good starter until he's not starting anymore, and then we won't hear from him again. So he's probably going to be like a one contract running back. He'll have 2 good years on his rookie deal. But I mean, Hemby's been banged up in college. He's missed some time. So when he gets on the field, he profiles to be a 3-down back, but he doesn't necessarily have a dominant trait. He does a lot of things well, but there isn't necessarily one trait where he's going to be able to hang his hat on. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I see Hemby. We talked about this when we covered running backs. My comp for Hemby is Kyren Williams. And the reason for that is because of the production and how he is able to overcome some things like his athleticism, right? When running the football. Like you look between Kalen Black and you look between Roman Hemby and you see a different level of explosiveness when Black touches the ball. That's it. Roman Hemby, though, he is doing the dirty work. He's got great vision. He runs for it. Kyren Williams was an easy top 5 running back in that class by every metric of film, anything that you could look at. He tested and he ran a 4.7 40. So, of course, people knocked him. He dropped down. He's been one of the most productive running backs in the NFL over the last few years. I think Hemby is in a similar situation. He's a fringe RB. He's my RB10, I think, right now. So he's fringe, top 10 running back for me going into the combine. And I don't know that his testing is going to help him out. He's a player that I could see people falling off of. I think it's already kind of started. Kalen Black has started to kind of pass him. Kind of in the scouting sphere, right? Like I think people are starting to talk about Kalen Black as like someone that is a little bit, more like projected to do better at the NFL, I guess, than maybe Roman Hemby. But I just see Hemby as a very consistent player, and he is the one player. Like that's where my dominant trait list cuts off. Like I think that's it. Like I don't think he has one. He doesn't have one, and that's fine because Kyren Williams doesn't have a dominant trait. Like as long as he's on the field and he's getting touches, like he's gonna make them productive. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. But you saw even Kyren Williams got Blake Corum. Like Blake Corum came in. He's as good, if not better, running back, right? So now they're kind of splitting those carries, and I could see Hemby being in a situation like that.
What worries me about Hemby is the workload. 711 touches I see over the course of his college career. Saquon Barkley at 671. So there's some Jim, I don't know if you mentioned that, but will Hemby be able to make get a second contract, or is he going to start showing that fatigue?
Yep. And Christian, that's actually really good data there, because Hemby, when he was on Maryland, he was the guy. Now, eventually they discovered Ty Felton, but we weren't necessarily talking about Ty Felton over the summer. We weren't talking about Ty Felton until he was leading the Big Ten in touchdowns his senior year. So, when Hemby was on Maryland, he was the guy. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So we should probably circle back to wide receivers, because if we could add up tight ends and running backs and the number that gets drafted, it may equal the number of wide receivers that get drafted. And we only talked about a couple. So Taylor, who do you think are going to be the 5 fastest wide receivers that draft people already know about? So, I mean, we don't have to worry about, that small school guy that nobody's heard of, but like the guys that actually have like a good film grade. Who do you think are going to be the 5 fastest?
Yeah, I think Mel Kiper's guy, Zachariah Branch, is going to be in that 5. And it's funny you say that because in my ranking model, I factor in college football 26 of the video game rankings very minimally. Like it's literally like 1%, but it's in there. And so I was messing around on the CFB rating site and I looked and just saw what wide receivers does college football, the video game from EA, have ranked as the fastest wide receivers because I was like, these guys, to me, everyone talks about Barian Brown. He's the fastest player on the game. Kendrick Law is one from Kentucky that I'm interested in to see what he runs because I think that could be a blazing time. Brennan Thompson is another one, the wide receiver from Mississippi State. I think everyone's getting excited about what he's going to run. And then another guy that I think is going to, hold on, I just had him here. I'll be interested to see, anyways, what he runs is Casey Concepcion. I think he's going to run fast. I really do. And I think he's going to, of all the players, if I could put a stamp on it that for me that are kind of borderline top 50, that might put their stamp in round one, kind of like Matthew Golden did last year, it would be Concepcion. And I know some people already have him in that tier. I don't. But I think once he runs and we see what he tests like, I think he'll be in that tier for me.
Okay, Christian, if you had to pick 5 wide receivers that will run the fastest 40 that we have decent film grades on, any additional names? Go ahead.
I'm trying to cycle through my list, but Zachariah Branch is one. I think Chris Brazzell is gonna fly. He's got the deep speed. You mentioned Barian Brown, Taylor. One more that he's not really highly graded, but I'm curious to see what he runs, and that's Chris Hilton, another LSU guy.
Yes, we talked about Chris Hilton a little bit on yesterday's podcast. So LSU may have 4 receivers at the combine that can all run a 4.2 40 because Aaron Anderson may be testing in that category as well.
Yep.
So
I was almost mentioned him, but he's just slightly graded a little bit higher than Chris Hilton, who is very low on my board. But all I've put in is the analytics side, and he had no production.
Well, right, he had like 10 catches this year.
Yeah, so of course he's going to grade low, but I haven't got into the tape and everything on him yet. But yeah, he's graded very low for me.
So funny Chris Hilton story, because this channel's been talking about Chris Hilton over the summer, and then he kind of disappeared during the season because of the lack of production that Taylor mentioned. So, we were doing team previews over the summer. We brought an LSU podcaster on when we previewed LSU, right? We're talking about Nussmeier as you round 1, and that ship has since sailed probably. Yes. But it was a lot of fun talking about LSU, but we didn't have Chris Hilton on the player list. And he said, my favorite receiver, it was Noah Tingle. Noah Tingle said, my favorite receiver is Chris Hilton. You should take a look at him. And the interesting thing about Chris Hilton is that he profiles his body is what you want for your wide receiver 5. He's going to be able to be a gunner on special teams. He's got the speed. He can run for the love of the game routes as your X. So he's going to do everything you want your wide receiver 4 or 5 to do, and he blocks his ass off. We're not going to have that conversation about Barian Brown, and we're not going to have that conversation about Aaron Anderson. Right. Chris Hilton is a different body style. So I think Chris Hilton is going to be drafted higher than even the Draft Professor Simulator has him going right now. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Taylor.
You can go. I was gonna ask how you would rank the 4 LSU wide receivers because there's 4 LSU wide receivers that are draftable. To me, there's 2 kick returners / punt returners, 1 Zachariah Branch light, and then 1 is Chris Hilton, who I just total wild card.
And something else I think goes into Hilton's favor. He's the only player in this draft class to play in all 4 All-Star games. That's going to matter. It's going to send that message to teams loud and clear. I'm a competitor, and you kind of see that style on tape in his style of play.
Yeah. So, Taylor, can you list off who the 4 receivers are? Because I know 3 of them, but I'm missing the 4th. I'm not looking at a player board right now.
I have Barian Brown, Aaron Anderson, we talked about, Chris Hilton, and then isn't Xavion Thomas as well in this? Yeah. That's who I said Zachariah Branch light because he does the same. Like you can say Zachariah Branch if you want. You could say Skylar Bell. He's done the same mold. Like they're catching everything at the line of scrimmage and asked to do everything after the catch. And like that's what those 2 players are, and that's what Xavion Thomas has, that same mold. But when you watch LSU, like especially early in the season, like to me, Xavion Thomas is just like ultra electric. Like they would find ways to get him the ball, and he was the most explosive thing in that offense for multiple stretches throughout the season. So he's a player that I'm interested to see at the combine as well. I think he's at the combine. Hopefully, I got a full list in here.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, that's what I thought. Cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead, Christian.
No, I was kind of
okay. We're all set there. Okay, so other wide receivers. I didn't hear either of you mention Eric Rivers. What 40 time do you think Eric Rivers from Georgia Tech will run, Christian?
Four fours. I would say. What about you, Taylor?
This is probably the worst thing I could ever be at. I'm not someone that can like gamble on 40 times and win money. You know what I mean? Like I'm off by I can't. I don't know. I just
I say that with not a lot of confidence.
I ignore all until the combine, and I can get into the RAS data. I do not look at athleticism hardly at all. Like there are devices and there are systems and there are models out there that take all of the analytics, take all of the speeds, all of the height, weight, size. They do all that for me. I don't do any of that. So I have no clue what these guys are going to run. I just know what times they need to run to make an impact in the grand scheme of the entire draft community, right? And that is in the 4.3s or lower. And so
Taylor, you're not in Missouri. Like, you're just like, show me.
Yeah, I'm like, no, exactly. It's like, I mean, like for Eric Rivers to be a top 100, 150 player, he would need to run in the 4.3s, solidified, probably 4.35 or less. Outside of that, like that's just what, but that could be said about 10 different receivers, right? So it's not just Eric Rivers. It's just like there's a time that these receivers need to hit to go up boards. And I don't know what he's gonna run. It's hard to tell. And like, it's like last year, it's like no, everyone thought they were gonna run slower, and then you got K-State defensive backs running in the 4.3s. So like, I don't know.
Well, and
low 4.4s is what shows up on tape to me. I see a low 4.4 guy.
Yeah.
Yep. So if we have a time machine with a flux capacitor and we go back to last year's draft. So think about what happened between rounds 3 and 5. Right? Basically, the NFL sniped every fast wide receiver before Buffalo was on the clock in round 5. Right? So Buffalo picks Landon Jackson in round 3. There were a couple of receivers that the Bills fan base was thinking about because Buffalo needed speed in the wide receiver room. But between round 3 and when Buffalo came on the clock in round 5, that Isaac Tesla went off the board. Arian Smith. I don't think anybody that I talked to had a 4th round grade on Arian Smith. But if you look at all the wide receivers, or I shouldn't say all, but if you look at the wide receivers that went off the board in a span of about 45 picks, if the receiver was running a 4.3, that's where the NFL takes them. Yeah. So, there's going to be several players in this draft who are going to meet that. So if Eric Rivers doesn't go round 3, his 40 time is what's going to keep him in the round 4 conversation. Right. And I think the LSU wide receivers that Taylor mentioned, it's the same thing. Chris Hilton, nobody's talking about as a round 4 wide receiver, but if he's going to run a 4.2 40, he's not getting out of round 4.
Yeah. For sure. And like I pulled it up right now. The 3 picks before Landon Jackson were Kyle Williams, Isaac Tesla, whatever, and then Vernon Broughton, defensive tackle. So two of 3 picks right before Landon Jackson went at 72. It was a 4.4 wide receiver and a 4.43 wide receiver. That 4.43 wide receiver being Tesla that tested.
And then you could just look at the picks even after Landon Jackson. And there were a lot of wide receivers. There was a huge run on wide receivers in round 3 and 4 because everybody separates round 3 and 4 because one's day 2 and one's day 3. But an NFL team is built in round 4. If your GM is hitting on the round 4 draft picks, your GM still has a job, right? It's easy to hit on the top 100, but you start making your money and proving your worth in round 4 in this draft analyst opinion.
In this draft analyst opinion, all of these round 4 wide receivers suck. So just because they run fast, like I'm looking at the names. I'm straight up looking at the names. I see, okay, Shamara Dike had a great rookie season. I'll give him that. He was the first pick of round 4, okay? Dante Thornton sucked. Couldn't get on the field on a bad Raiders team. Arian Smith sucked. Couldn't get on the field on a bad Jets team, okay? Then we go down the board. There's no wide receiver till Jalen Lane for the Commanders, which allegedly they like, but he's a returner, right? He's a returner, okay? Jalen Royals for the Chiefs, bad pick. Jordan Watkins for the 49ers. There was some hype preseason, but ultimately not good. Elick Iomanner, not great. So, and that's not even including round 3 wide receivers in Ty Felton, who was taken. Savion Williams, who isn't very good. Just because, I guess my thing is, you're right. They are bumping these guys up the draft board because they ran fast, but that doesn't mean they're good at football. That doesn't mean they're good wide receivers. That's the hard part for me is, these guys are missing. I just named 8 picks that have not looked good at all. And those were round 3, 4 wide receivers. So this range is dangerous for teams, right? This is you want to build your team, like you said, in this round, but if you miss, that's a high leverage pick.
And the hit rate on wide receiver is one of the lowest, right? It's difficult to hit up. 33 get drafted on average every year, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be 16 good wide receivers. 50% of them aren't going to have outstanding careers. But Christian, what were you going to add?
At that point, when you start getting to late day 2, early day 3, the traits become all that more attractive. So you're looking for that rare time speed, the rare testing, and you hope it blossoms into something. Kind of going back to what I touched up on earlier about day 3 players. It's not the bar to draft Pro Bowlers, but you hope you get 1 or 2.
Yep. Any other wide receivers that we want to talk about? And, we've been spending so much time talking about the 40 time. We really haven't talked about, there's other ways to measure explosion, right? Whether it's a 3-cone for short area quickness, the broad jump, what's the one? The vertical. There we go. I was going to call it the high jump, but that wasn't the right term, right? So any other receivers that you're thinking will have good explosive metrics, even if they're 40 time, isn't in the category of the players that we just mentioned.
This has Deion Burks written all over it. His tape at Purdue, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to Oklahoma, gets dinged up. But over the course of this season, he started to get back on track and get a lot more consistency.
Yep.
And that's a good shout out. So ironically, Deion Burks was mentioned. We were doing combine prop bets yesterday. So that, right, any position.
Yeah.
And Deion Burks was one of the players that was predicted to blow up the combine, a player that probably has a better pro career than he did a college career. And I love the second call out for Deion Burks. That's a name that I think you're going to hear when you're watching the combine. And we're telling you that there were multiple draft professors that said it first. So I just, we'll put that out there.
Let me just say, as a fellow Purdue fan, Deion Burks and Dylan Thieneman actually got those probably maybe two of the few players who could get Purdue fans to get to the TV and watch a Purdue football game.
What about Mac? Wasn't Max Clare on Purdue?
Yeah, Clare was another one.
All those great. There's 4 elite Purdue players at once, and they all got poached.
Sorry, Anthony Russo, but Purdue's like the New York Jets of college football. Every players leave and they just get better.
Okay, I'm turning that one into a short. that right there, Christian, is the line of the week. I absolutely love it. I will be trolling Anthony with that when I see him on Sunday. That was incredible.
That's amazing. Can I ask about the gauntlet? We talked about, I think that's the most important drill. I know we talked about the 3-cone, all the vertical. That stuff does matter, right? For your RAS, all that stuff, which if you're the Indianapolis Colts, that's all that matters. But if you're doing the gauntlet, Christian, you mentioned it earlier. We talked about Keon Coleman running the fastest in the gauntlet. Who to you, give me 3 guys that you think could really improve their draft stock based off of the gauntlet and the gauntlet alone?
Well, I look at the speed guys because they're known for getting down the field and being explosive, but can they show the concentration? Because the gauntlet really checks every single box of what it requires out of a receiver. Yep. Speed to get through the drills quick as possible, concentration to secure the catches, and linear awareness, boundary awareness to stay on the line.
Yep.
So a couple of guys I've got, or I think could really help themselves out. Jacoby Lane. I don't think he's going to be a good tester, but he shows the ability to win contested catch situations. But if he can show that just put on display that concentration he's got, that's going to help him out substantially. Another one, Chase. I don't know if I think he's on the list, but Chase Roberts.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, Chase Roberts. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
I don't know about you, Taylor. I see some shades of Cooper Kupp with him.
I love Chase Roberts is a player that I have put on my. I put it on Twitter. I put it on my own channel. I think he's going to go on day 2. And I know that is not a consensus thought even right now, but I do think his combine is going to help him a lot. And he's someone I've been really high on. So I was going to say him for this gauntlet for sure.
I'm right there with you.
Yep. I'll throw out another name because it's interesting to me because he's getting a lot of hype and I think it can really help or hurt his stock, but that's Kevin Coleman Jr. out of Missouri. Like I think he's a guy who's been getting some hype recently. And then I think honestly, the small school guys, it's obviously going to be pretty big for, but another guy to me that I think is an interesting case study because he returns kicks and punts and he gets moved around a lot, but he's not that good at anything, but he's good at everything is Josh Cameron to me from Baylor. It's like, he's not fast, but he's not slow. He's not quick, but he's not a stick in the mud, but he can return kicks, but he's not like this athleticism. Like he's such an interesting case study to me personally, and me being Sawyer Robertson, obviously that's my guy. So like I watch a lot of Josh Cameron and he is always doing like the littlest of things. Like it's not big, it's not explosive. Like that's what they got Michael Trigg for. That's what they got Kobe Prentice for. But like Josh Cameron's a guy that to me, we could be like, oh my God, he ran 19 miles an hour in the gauntlet and he ran straight on the line. And we're like, yeah, oh my God. And all of a sudden he's on the Rams. And it's like, okay, well, exactly. Like that's a guy to me that I think can really improve his stock with that. And I think
you know what the best part of the combine is going to be is Josh Cameron's going to have a different uniform number.
Yeah, he won't be 34 anymore.
So for anybody not watching, Josh Cameron wore number 34 for Baylor, and he was playing wide receiver. There was just something about that didn't look right. And I know that Ryan Sparks, who's here in the chat, has said that numerous times on this very podcast that Josh Cameron needed a different uniform number. So anyway, I'm glad that made you guys laugh.
Yep. That was good. Yeah, that's about all I got. I think most of the other guys are either, kind of locked in or I think Omar Cooper's another guy that I don't expect him to do poorly in the gauntlet. So it's not going to affect me. I just think people are going to we've been talking about round 1 a lot in the chat and I don't see a round 1, but if the gauntlet is what the gauntlet is and he has a similar performance to Keon Coleman or something like that, or Puka Nacua where he looks flawless in that drill, I think that's going to vault him off boards too. But that's my thing is like, I expect him to do well in that. So I'm already factoring that in, I guess, to my evaluation. We'll see what happens, but I think people could be surprised by him as well.
Okay. Christian, any other skill players or combine events that you want to point out for skill position players that we haven't really discussed on the podcast?
Oh, off the top of my head, I'll give up one more player who I think could help. I'm not sure how much to a degree, but Nick Singleton, I think needs to test off the charts. Isn't
he out?
Is he? Oh, he might. That's right.
He's my RB. He's on my RB4 now because of the injury. I bumped him behind Jonah Coleman, but he's a guy that I really, really like, and I was looking forward to him testing. And same with like Chris Bell. There's another injured receiver that I was really is it Colin Lacey? Is he injured as well? Maybe
Louisville.
Yeah, from Louisville. I don't know, but those are some other guys. The one guy for me that I think could actually be the fastest running back, and I think that's going to be impressive to people, and that's going to be Demon Claiborne. I don't know if he's going to be the fastest, but I think he's in contention. And for me, he's right behind Mike Washington, RB6 right now. I would love to see what he tests.
Thank you for that. I forgot Singleton got hurt. Got dinged up.
So real quick, the last thing, because we're almost at an hour already. I just want to know who is the highest rated player at each position that did not make the combine. Ooh. Or you don't have one at each position, but I have a running back. My RB7, Dean Connors, did not make an invite to the combine. Only 21 running backs. They won't get my boy Dean Connors in there. So that's a little disappointing for me personally.
I'll throw Mark Fletcher out. He's my RB8.
Did he go back to school?
Fletcher went back to school.
Oh, he did. I totally missed that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
talked
guys
about it
for that.
during the
Thank you again.
Jim and Steve and I did a national championship or like a Final Four preview, and I posed the question, and I want Jim, you need to confirm this. I posed the question on the college football playoff Final Four preview. Could Mark Fletcher be the RB2 in this class if he declares?
Oh,
And I was met with, nah, there's no chance. And they were right, to be fair. He didn't declare. But that was just my point being there was no RB2. And Mark Fletcher, I agree with you. I love Mark Fletcher. He would have been in my top 10 running backs pretty easily. So next year, Christian, we'll have to get on a podcast.
Next year's running back class is going to be lit. So there was one point this year that the 5 leading running backs in the SEC, none of which were draft eligible.
Yeah.
Right. So like the SEC has a lot of young running backs that are coming up. Plus you factor in Fletcher went back to school. Baxter went back to school. So there was a lot of players that we had like a mid-grade on at running back that returned to school. And Nick Singleton and Katron Allen would have been drafted significantly higher last year in a stacked running back class than they will be this year in a very weak running back class. Right. We at Draft Professors had Katron Allen and Nick Singleton in the top 5. And that was a draft that featured Ashton Genty, Travion Henderson, and Quinshaw Junkins.
Amarian Hampton.
And then Amarian Hampton, right? So, there were, I think, 3 round 2 running backs last year.
I was going to say there was 4 in the top 38.
Johnson,
two round 1. And then RJ Harvey went 60.
RJ Harvey.
Yep. So, and Denver fans are still mock drafting running backs to Denver, even with RJ Harvey being a 3rd round pick.
RJ Harvey is in a different role. Yes. He's a complimentary piece and was drafted as such. We'll see if they re-sign J.K. Dobbins or if they get in on the Algier or my personal favorite flavor is Rico Dowdle. That's who I want us to sign to cover that role. Because that is where, if you look at RJ Harvey is like, I think people kind of scoff at like, oh, we need another running back. But RJ Harvey scored 12 touchdowns and he was a complimentary back. And that's all he's going to be. And that's fine. That Sean Payton's ran this offense for 20 plus years. So like we know what 2 pieces we need on offense, a tight end that can block and receive. And then we need a running back that can tote the rock between the tackles early down. The fact that we had Jaleel McLaughlin, who's 5'8", 173 pounds or whatever he is, as our primary running back between the tackles when J.K. Dobbins went out, like that was what killed us all the back half of the season. We couldn't run the ball. So as soon as Bo went down, it's like, okay, well, we can't run the ball because we don't have any running backs capable of being between the tackle because that's not RJ Harvey's game. So I do believe the Broncos will take a running back within their first 4 selections. It most likely will be the 3rd or the 4th, in my opinion. But I think that is a complimentary piece to Harvey. But your point being exactly like that's a 2nd round pick that we just invested, huge capital in. So we're not going to take a running back in the 1st round or in the 2nd round. Like we just did that. We'll find a guy in free agency. We'll find a guy late in the draft. I don't think there's anyone taking RJ Harvey's role. It's just making his role more defined and more impactful when he's on the field. So I think there's a lot of that when we get into the draft nuances and stuff like that, like all those pieces moving around. And like, even if you look at the tight ends from last year, Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, like you talked about tight ends waiting for last year, but like Elijah Arroyo, these tight ends didn't even make an impact. The Seahawks went to the Super Bowl. Elijah Arroyo had no impact, 0. And he's their future. He's 22 years old. You know what I mean? So like a lot of these tight ends are long-term. The running backs are kind of more quick, get them in on first contract and then, see what happens. But I don't know. All that to say the Broncos will be drafting a running back.
So, and Arroyo just being healthy all the way through the season may have been a minor victory within itself, right? Because he had a lot of injury questions coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Taylor, do you want to let everybody know about Football with Shaw and everything else that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow the website down there. I honestly have not. I've been so busy. I started a new job, so I've not posted an article on there in a while, but that is going to change soon. I obviously am pretty active on Twitter. That's how Jim found me, so you can follow my X handle down there. But that's about it. First time really diving into the NFL draft in terms of building out a ranking model. So I'm excited to share that with everyone once I, get that finalized and get all the players evaluated. But take it away, Christian.
Yep. Jim found me on Twitter as well. Give me a follow on my handle below there at Zwick_Christian. New draft board coming out on probably on Monday. Putting the finishing touches up on that, so it'll be ready next week before the combine. And feel free to interact, exchange, and I appreciate all the engagement.
Yeah, so most of the draft professors were found on Twitter. So if you do want to be on a draft podcast, it doesn't take much. If you find me at Draft Professor, at NFL Draft Fanatic, no, I am Fanatic, and you want to be able to talk with Christian, Taylor, or any of the other draft professors, that's kind of how we're here. Owen I found on Discord. I found Josh, and Josh isn't even podcasting anymore, but I found Josh on LinkedIn. Right after Josh podcasted with us for a year, he got hired by the University of Delaware as a scout. So dreams do come true. So, but yeah, we're here at Draft Professor podcasting on the draft every day, 7 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern every weeknight. We have 2 shows on Saturday. We have 3 shows on Sunday. So we will be doing live shows every day leading up to the draft. And then right after the draft happens, we are immediately kicking into gear and we will cover the next draft class. We are ready to go. The plan is in place. So we cover the draft 12 months a year here at the Draft Professor. And we have Epic Mock on April 9th, 10th, and 11th. So Epic Mock is 32 podcasters mock drafting against 32 podcasters. 7 rounds with trades. We mirror the NFL draft schedules. So round 1 on Thursday, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and then day 3 on Saturday. And then this year for Epic Mock, we're doing a UDFA episode on Sunday. So the Sunday podcast, we can only talk about players that were not selected in Epic Mock. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had the idea last year, and I'm like, well, we need draft content, so we can use Epic Mock to make up a little bit more. You'll see Taylor podcasting Thursday night, round 1 of Epic Mock. Taylor and I are going to be here for about 4 hours with a few other draft professors. You will see Christian podcasting during Epic Mock as well. So all the draft professors will all be here, and we hope that you're following along with us too. For Christian, Taylor, myself, for the 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching. We will see Christian and EJ talking about a Jeff Hafley defense in 1 hour. Thank you, everybody.